a powerful weapon capable of striking Moscow and the temporarily occupied Crimea. The long-range cruise missile Flamingo has become a major success for Ukraine's missile program, and very soon it will go into mass production. Friends, you are on the YouTube channel Ukraine Today. This is the topic of the day. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this episode. What else are we talking about today? That Russia continues its military terror. The Russian Federation launched several missile strikes on an American enterprise in Zakarpattia. The number of victims there is growing. Special Forces fighters destroyed a boat with occupiers near Zhelezny port. And soon we will show you this footage. We are also talking about Belarus, which plans to deepen its cooperation with Iran in all areas, including military. Lukashenko is now openly saying this. And China is preparing to showcase its latest weapons at a parade. Why now and what exactly will be shown? We'll talk about this next, followed by a discussion in the studio.
Ukraine has repelled one of the largest attacks. Russian occupiers launched 574 Shahed drones and other drone decoys, as well as 40 missiles of various types. The west, center, and north were under enemy fire. In Lviv, dozens of houses, windows, and roofs were damaged by the blast wave, and there are injured people. As a result of Russian strikes on Mukachevo in the Zakarpattia region, an American factory producing electrical products was destroyed. At least 15 people were injured. But it was also a restless night in Russia. The occupation authorities reported drone attacks in several regions. An energy facility was damaged, several areas in the Voronezh region were left without power, and a fire is also raging at the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery. And things are also heating up for the occupiers on the front line. Ukrainian intelligence carried out a unique attack in the area of Zhelezny port. A drone with a laser designator guided a missile to the enemy's boat, destroying it along with the entire crew. Also in the Dobrokol direction, Ukraine's defense forces continue to carry out stabilization measures. As a result of the active actions of Ukrainian soldiers, the enemy is suffering significant losses in manpower, equipment, and weaponry.
Thanks to the successful actions of Ukraine's defense forces in this direction, 6 settlements have been deoccupied, and the possibility of further breakthroughs by Russian occupation troops toward Zakarpattia, and consequently the administrative border with Dnipropetrovsk region, has been reduced to a minimum.
But while the defense forces are destroying the enemy, the Netherlands is deploying more than 2 Patriot air defense systems and 300 military personnel to protect NATO's logistics center for Ukraine. The EU is also urging Trump to deploy fighter jets in Europe. In particular, there are discussions about deploying American F-35 fighter jets in Romania.
Against the backdrop of the latest provocation by the Russian Federation, the issue concerns the violation of Polish airspace. This is the incursion of the Gerund 2 attack drone into the airspace of Lithuania. This is the Gerbera drone, an imitator. Plus, accordingly, the violation of Estonia's territorial borders. The discussion is about strengthening air defense systems and the components of these air defense systems. This includes F-16s and F-35s, with the aim of preventing such provocations from the Russian Federation.
Meanwhile, the self-proclaimed president of Belarus has announced his readiness to cooperate with Iran across a wide range of areas, including the military sphere. It's been a while since Satye appeared in the media space, so he decided to make some noise.
This is about Lukashenko's attempt to diversify for Vyshimashka away from the Russian Federation and accordingly towards the People's Republic of China. For example, possibly the supply of certain products from Iran to the territory of the Republic of Belarus for the needs of some Belarusian processing enterprises, as well as accordingly the possibility of producing Iranian drones directly on the territory of the Republic of Belarus. In other words, this is yet another attempt by Lukashenko, as the first Ukrainian president used to say, to walk between the raindrops. That is, to maneuver between the interests of the United States, the People's Republic of China, and accordingly, the Russian Federation.
While Lukashenko is only planning to establish military ties, China is preparing to showcase its latest weapons at the parade marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, which will take place on September 3rd.
Putin is raising the stakes, both politically and militarily. It is no coincidence that the statement from the satellite of the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, about China's role in the so-called settlement of the Ukrainian issue, as the Russian side presents it. In other words, this is about strengthening the influence of the People's Republic of China on the international stage.
Following China, North Korea is also rattling its sabers. The North Korean leader plans to increase the nuclear arsenal in response to joint military exercises by the US and South Korea.
First and foremost, this is not so much a conflict between North Korea and South Korea as it is a conflict between North Korea and the United States. North Korea is trying to escalate the situation on the Korean peninsula, and this position by North Korea is supported both by the People's Republic of China and, accordingly, by the Russian Federation.
There is much to discuss, and we will do so with Pavlo Lakicic, a military expert and head of security programs at the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21. Pavlo, hello, I'm very glad to see you.
Good afternoon, glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. Let's start with the Flamingo. We've waited so long for Ukrainian ballistic missiles and dreamed about them, haven't we? I'd like to get a better understanding. Do you think the Flamingo could become a game changer in this war for Ukraine? Because there are already articles by experts, including from the analytical portal Defense Express, saying that in principle, it has both its drawbacks and its advantages.
First of all, we are waiting for ballistic missiles, and they will come, but the Flamingo is a different type of missile. We have the Neptune cruise missile, and now the Flamingo cruise missile will be added to it. Although these are missiles of the same type, in terms of class and design, they are quite different. What can I say? Well, in general, it is widely known and has been extensively discussed by everyone, the primary tactical and technical characteristics, as well as the overall appearance of this particular missile. Therefore, it is considerably more relevant and pertinent to delve into and elaborate upon the distinctive design features that truly set this advanced missile apart from others of its kind. From my personal point of view, these particular design features are based precisely and fundamentally on the inherent simplicity of its overall construction, which is a key aspect of its effectiveness. The inherent simplicity of the overall design and its remarkable suitability for efficient mass production ultimately became the absolutely crucial and most significant key factors that decisively determined its comprehensive tactical and technical characteristics and capabilities. It's immediately and strikingly clear that this particular missile unequivocally belongs to the distinct class of the 1980s, I would confidently assert, judging meticulously by its overall configuration, its specific design elements, and its inherent technological characteristics. The fundamental reason why such a remarkably minimal amount of attention was deliberately paid to the crucial aspect of radar stealth is precisely and intentionally to facilitate and enable its large-scale, widespread production. This strategic decision is why the missile ultimately turned out to be both impressively large and exceptionally powerful in its capabilities. But it is also, consequently, quite clearly and distinctly visible from a considerable distance. It illuminates the radar screens remarkably well. This inherent visibility is undoubtedly a significant drawback, a notable disadvantage in modern warfare, but this specific drawback is fortunately, effectively and ingeniously compensated for by other operational advantages.
By its speed. Now I'll move on to the question of how easy or difficult it will be for the Russians to shoot it down, because they're currently in a real panic about it.
Well, they're going to panic no matter what happens, regardless of the specific circumstances. Cruise missiles, well, as a seasoned sailor, I've always maintained that at sea, cruise missiles are the primary means of non-nuclear deterrence. Indeed, if your fleet doesn't possess cruise missiles, it's simply a vulnerable target. If you possess even a relatively small number of advanced cruise missiles, you effectively transition from being a vulnerable target to becoming a formidable hunter. In the year 2008, when the Russian Federation launched its attack on Georgia, an aggression that notably included forces from the Black Sea Fleet Group, which was unfortunately based in our Sevastopol, yes, regrettably, from our very own Sevastopol, the Russians exhibited a profound sense of anxiety and apprehension. And in fact, they didn't take any active actions with their naval group, although there are a lot of different stories going around, tales written by propagandists, the Red Star types. These are more like legends. In reality, the Russians were afraid to attack in full force because there were two missile boats there, one from Batumi, transferred by the Ukrainian side, Project 206 missile boat, and one transferred by Greece, the Dioscuria, equipped with the French Exocet missile system. But we knew that in that same Batumi, the Georgians were actually storing paint and mops within the missile launchers, primarily because there were no missiles available and the entire system was completely non-operational. The very same situation was basically true for the Exocet as well. But the Russians didn't know this. Russian intelligence couldn't obtain this information, and the entire Russian force grouping was afraid that at any moment, 2 missile boats would come out of Poti to attack them and destroy the whole bunch, led by the cruiser Moskva. That's why they kept their distance from the Georgian coast. The Georgian fleet was eventually destroyed by Russian special forces from the shore, as often happens. The same applies not only to the sea, but also to the shore. If you have cruise missiles, missile weaponry, you are no longer a victim. You are an active hunter. This was written about, perhaps in different words, by Generals Zaluzhny and Zabrodsky in September 2022 when they described this theory, the theory of our war, as the definition of the center of gravity, the center of mass, a pendulum that needs to be swung onto Russian territory. As long as it remains on our territory, we are losing. If we swing it toward the Russians, the situation will change. And so, without a certain degree, without the support of our partners, we end up in this position. It all started with long-range drones. It's important to understand that a drone is an ersatz, whether it's a naval drone or an aerial drone. After all, it's still a substitute for high-tech weaponry, which is what we have now. And in this particular and crucial case, it effectively serves as a comprehensive and highly efficient replacement, thereby allowing us to significantly and strategically scale up our operations and extensively utilize this powerful weapon system en masse across a wide array of scenarios and applications. The Flamingo missile belongs to the specific type of cruise missiles whose fundamental concept is quite straightforward. The simpler its design, the more units can be produced accordingly and efficiently. If the Neptune missile serves as our prime example of a highly advanced high-tech missile, then the Flamingo missile is specifically meant to become a widely mass-produced missile for extensive deployment. Naturally, the Russians are afraid. The Russians are afraid of our drones, which are already reaching as far as the Urals and beyond. They are afraid of more technologically advanced devices with higher speeds and larger warheads. If a typical drone is capable of carrying a payload of up to several dozen kilograms, specifically about 25 to 50 kilograms of warhead weight, then in stark contrast, the Flamingo, a much more substantial and powerful system, is designed to carry an impressive and significantly larger payload weighing a full ton. It's like the Kh-22. Roughly the same kind of thing the Russians have. Naturally, the Russians are scared because this is a completely different level of threat. But breaking through their air defenses with such missiles will be difficult. One can only imagine then.
What will happen to many of their oil refineries, right? First and foremost.
Well, why only the oil refineries? Yes, right now we're mostly talking about a high explosive warhead. Tons of dynamite. These are indeed powerful and devastating means of destruction. Yes, a truly powerful charge, but after all, the primary warhead can eventually, as technological advancements and strategic situations progress, be significantly modified and effectively replaced with a sophisticated cluster munition equipped with remote detonation capabilities. That means you now possess, if you please, highly effective and specialized weapon systems for precisely striking enemy airfields and for engaging very large-scale area targets with considerable impact. The main thing is that there is a carrier capable of delivering the charge, and that's the key. How effective will it be? Well, we will certainly see when this particular missile starts being actively used, and once a weapon truly starts being extensively used, the arms race inevitably speeds up. By and large, actual combat use is undeniably the biggest energizer for the further development of any kind of weaponry.
Well, yes, and its use will reveal certain issues, right? What needs to be upgraded? Most likely the modernization of the Flamingo will happen during these real war trials. Let's discuss the Russian strikes. What stands out about them? Russia has resumed its terror campaign. You were expecting this pause, which was connected to ultimatums and the delays caused by Trump, right? But apparently all the political bridges between the Russian Federation and the United States of America have already been burned, and now they have returned to full-scale terror against Ukraine. The most recent strike on the American factory, the Flex factory in Mukachevo, Zakarpattia region, draws particular attention. Why do you think they targeted the American factory specifically at this time? Is this connected to events on the international stage?
Well, I don't think that's exactly the case here. If we're talking specifically about this strike, then what we have is both Mukachevo and an American enterprise, a joint Ukrainian enterprise. The president of Hungary has already expressed his condolences, although he quickly made a correction. At first, it was originally written, "Our deepest condolences go out to the compatriots in Zakarpattia in connection with the recent and devastating Russian missile attack." An hour later, this heartfelt condolence for the tragic event was inexplicably changed to condolences for some kind of unknown and unspecified missile strike, which caused considerable confusion and concern. After the missile strike, Venti
Got a scolding from Moscow and
decided to, as for the American enterprise in Zakarpattia, we need to look at this situation a bit more broadly. With their strikes, massive strikes, the Russians, as can be seen by the change in their targets, are trying to achieve several objectives for the time being. But one of them, probably the first and most obvious, is terror. Missile and drone terror against the Ukrainian population, Ukrainian cities, with the aim of forcing us to capitulate not on the battlefield, but through attacks on critical infrastructure, so-called VTDUs and DTN2. As I see it, judging by my neighbors and fellow Ukrainians, this tactic is not succeeding, but we are holding on, we will not surrender. Second, there is an obvious and increasingly concerning emerging trend of strikes against critical energy infrastructure. While this particular pattern has not yet become a fully consistent or widespread phenomenon, there are already some very clear and preliminary signs that the Russian aggressors will undoubtedly attempt to create significant problems for us, specifically concerning heating, energy supply, and electricity provision, especially as we approach the crucial start of the upcoming heating season. However, it is important to recognize that this too is merely another deplorable component of their ongoing and brutal terrorist war against our nation and our people. Third, we observe a distinct pattern of strikes directed against various industrial facilities, including those vital to the military-industrial complex. This ranges extensively, starting from crucial port infrastructure, which is absolutely essential for ensuring the continuous inflow of vital finances and for the overall unimpeded functioning of the Ukrainian economy, and extending all the way to various other types of enterprises and production facilities. Here, there is a profoundly clear and undeniable difference between our approach and that of the Russians. We, the Ukrainian forces, strategically strike Russian oil refineries, and we precisely target Russian enterprises that are actively involved in the production of missiles and their highly specialized technological and structural components. However, it is a stark reality that we possess very few means of attack in comparison. Perhaps with the anticipated arrival of Flamingo, we will indeed have more capabilities, but for now, every single target is chosen with extreme meticulousness and very carefully. We simply cannot afford to waste our precious drones and valuable missiles, especially in situations where we might possess only one drone for every 10 potential targets. Our dedicated military personnel, before launching even a single munition, must meticulously and thoughtfully weigh all the pros and cons, all the potential risks and benefits of each and every target. Consequently, every chosen target is considered to be of extremely high importance and strategic value. The Russians, on the other hand, possess virtually unlimited means of attack, giving them an overwhelming advantage. Therefore, their hands are essentially untied. They can strike almost any enterprise they choose. If their military intelligence suspects there might be new production occurring somewhere, even without precise and confirmed information about whether military or dual-use products are actually being made, they might casually say, "What if something important is being produced there? Let's just hit it to be safe." This includes factories that haven't operated for perhaps 30 years, but historically used to produce either military goods or essential machine-building products, or could theoretically be adapted to repair and service military equipment. Even if that is demonstrably not the current reality, those facilities still get hit. This clearly shows, speaking in the most cynical terms, that they carry out what amounts to preventive shelling of virtually any target, even those that in reality are not military targets at all, simply because Russian generals or intelligence officers or spies have arbitrarily decided that something of potential interest or threat might be located there, justifying their destructive actions.
Most likely, they don't even come to such conclusions themselves. They just analyze what they can present as their own success to get another promotion, some new insignia on their epaulettes, or some kind of award. This is very important for them, and very often they live in their reports, as many analysts say. Well, we understand perfectly, Pavel, that if the enemy has the opportunity to intensify terror, they will definitely do it. So what should we do about it? And here are two questions. First, do you already see, based on the results of the latest attacks, any strengthening of Ukrainian air defense, the strengthening that our partners have been promising for several months now? And second, how seriously do you take statements, for example, from EU countries that are now calling on Donald Trump to deploy aircraft in Romania to protect the skies over Ukraine? How realistic is this option as well? Does Trump even need these Star Wars?
Let's start with the first question, since it's a serious one. Against the profound and unsettling backdrop of what we are currently discussing, the relentless Russian missile strikes and the critical strategies required to effectively counter them, the often repeated fantasies and wishful thinking of figures like Trump and various European leaders about what a truly good Trump could potentially achieve seem even more utterly laughable and detached from reality. So let us begin with this exceptionally serious and pressing matter. Today's extensive strike on Ukrainian cities is, in all likelihood, the third or fourth most powerful and impactful in terms of the sheer number of targets launched at our cities throughout this entire year. And I believe that overall, if we meticulously exclude the very first month of the full-scale war, it still ranks quite significantly as either the third or fourth largest attack. Here it is absolutely crucial to carefully note and understand the specific types of targets involved, because depending on the precise characteristics of these targets, various air defense systems operate and respond in very distinct and different ways. As for the Shaheds, the total number of Shaheds deployed was indeed high, but it was not quite as astronomically high as in some previous particularly massive strikes. Nevertheless, we achieved an exceptionally impressive 95% interception rate against them. That remarkable figure, exceeding 90%, unequivocally represents a highly successful and commendable performance by our dedicated air defense forces. 95% is without a doubt a very good and effective result. However, since the total number of these particular targets can vary by the hundreds, for instance, let's consider a scenario where they launch a mere dozen caliber missiles and our air defense achieves a 90% effectiveness rate. That would statistically mean that one missile still manages to get through. But if they were to launch a staggering 500 Shaheds and our air defense maintains that same 90% effectiveness, that would tragically mean that 50, a substantial 6 enemy drones, successfully get through our defenses. So, the sheer scale and magnitude of mass attacks is an incredibly important and decisive factor in assessing overall effectiveness. Here, the way all our various air defense layers performed demonstrates their consistently high effectiveness and remarkable coordination. There was a considerable amount of discussion and speculation about interceptor drones, but right now we are clearly seeing, first and foremost, that mobile groups have definitively confirmed their absolutely leading and indispensable role in destroying Russian low-speed aerial targets, that is to say, various types of drones. These mobile groups, comprising personnel from the territorial defense, the DFTG, and the air forces, almost half of the total successful results are directly attributable to their diligent and courageous work. Army aviation, which is not typically considered a primary asset for this specific task, also continues to consistently prove its exceptionally high effectiveness each time Army aviation operates with increasing efficiency and precision. These are, of course, our helicopters. While air defense is not their main operational job, they have learned to perform it with outstanding excellence. When these helicopters take off, they skillfully destroy these enemy drones using small arms or their standard cannons, though more often with precise small arms fire. In second place, though notably less effective against drones, were the anti-aircraft missile troops, and that is entirely understandable because a combined and complex strike, when targets with vastly different characteristics arrive simultaneously, including high-speed ballistic missiles, swift high-speed cruise missiles, slower low-speed cruise missiles, high-flying and low-flying ones, plus literally hundreds of Shaheds approaching from 40 different directions and various other drone imitators, creates an overwhelming overload for the entire air defense observation system, making it extraordinarily difficult to accurately prioritize targets for each individual air defense battery. Therefore, they were most effective against the cruise missiles, which are inherently dangerous and pose the absolute highest priority threat. Almost all of them, I believe, were successfully destroyed, or perhaps all except, I believe, one Zircon missile that was launched from Crimea specifically towards Sumy, which unfortunately could not be intercepted. The situation is considerably worse and more challenging with ballistic and aeroballistic missiles. This particular strike involved both conventional ballistic missiles, such as Iskandar's North Korean analogs, and Kinzhal missiles launched from MiG-31 complexes. Unfortunately, the effectiveness of our defenses against these specific threats was very low. Why was this the case? Because we don't have enough air defense coverage against ballistic targets. The strike was dispersed, and our Patriot systems, the only systems we have that are highly likely to destroy ballistic targets, are concentrated in several locations where the most probable and most damaging strikes are expected.
We also need to admire the work of our air defenders and bow low to them. They are our heroes. But there is still much to consider first and foremost for our Western partners who have made promises. Keep fulfilling them. There is still more support we need to expand and strengthen our defenses. Pavlo, thank you so much. I won't keep you any longer. I just want to remind our viewers that Pavlo Lakichuk, military expert and head of security programs at the Center for Global Studies Strategy Damitansi, was answering my questions. Thank you again for your work, and until we meet again.
Slowly the sky signal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.